This Film is Lit, the podcast where we finally settle the score on one simple question. Is the book really better than the movie? I'm Brian. I have a film degree, so I watch the movie, but don't read the book.
And I'm Katie. I have an English degree, so I do things the right way and read the book before we watch the movie.
Look, some of us are lazy, alright?
If by lazy you mean wrong.
Prepare to be wowed by our expertise and charm as we dissect all of your favorite film adaptations and decide whether the silver screen or the written word did it better. So turn it up, settle in, and get ready for spoilers, because guess what? This film is lit. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. It's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and this film is lit. Hello and welcome back to the 11th episode of This Film is Lit, the podcast where we answer the age-old question, is the book really better than the film? Today's episode, we're talking about the film, 1971 film, I believe, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, based on the Roald Dahl book from...
1962,
there you
I
go.
want to say.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. We didn't have a prequel episode because we were a little busy with holiday stuff, travel,
Christmas.
all of that good shenanigans. We just didn't really have time. So, which is alright because we hadn't really seen any movies or anything to discuss. So we're just going to do a little bit of the preview info. Kind of set it up here like we used to in our first episodes before we did the prequel episodes. And we'll get back to the prequel episodes next week, because we'll probably have seen something new or exciting by then, I would think. But yeah, so we're going to jump right off the bat here to our fun facts about the book and the film. We'll start with the book. Katie, let's talk about Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl.
So there were a couple inspirations for this book, one of which was a childhood experience that Roald Dahl had. Cadbury used to send samples to his school and use the kids as like a focus group.
Makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Give the kids the candy, see what they think.
Another thing that inspired him was actually chocolate espionage was a real thing.
Oh, like
in the
spies?
1920s, yeah.
Huh.
Competing companies would send undercover spies to each other's factories to try and steal trade secrets.
Yeah.
It was apparently really intense in the 1920s between Cadbury and Rowntree's, which is another British...
Yeah, Cadbury's delicious.
Yeah, Cadbury I know. Rowntree's I haven't heard of, but I'm going to assume it maybe is more popular across the pond.
I'm sure, yeah. Like, because Cadbury's isn't, like, super popular over here, other than, like, some of the cream eggs and that sort of thing.
Well,
But
I know.
big chocolate company overseas.
Yeah.
Like, when I was in Scotland, I remember that was, like, the main chocolate. It was like Hershey's over here, but actually good.
Yeah, I guess if it wasn't for the Cadbury eggs, I don't know if I would even know.
Yeah. Their regular chocolate bar is what you can get over here. It's like in a purple wrapper, is some of the best just like generic like chocolate. It's so good. I can't remember what it's called. It's called like, it's just their milk chocolate, but it's got a name.
Cadbury, if you'd like to sponsor us, we've already written you a commercial.
Yes. Cadbury, why can't I not remember what it's called? It's a purple wrapper. Anyway, I saw it at Five Below the other day. It's so good. Their milk chocolate is so good.
I'll have to get one.
Yeah.
I do love some chocolate. Let's see. This book went through a lot of different drafts. Original title was Charlie's Chocolate Boy. And in that original draft, Charlie accidentally gets encased in chocolate.
Charlie's Chocolate Boy sounds like a very different book.
It really does.
That's a good name change that they decided there. So, it could have gone a very different direction.
Other earlier drafts of the book included up to 15 kids that get taken out by the chocolate factory, including a little girl who gets turned into peanut brittle. So that's fun. I'm sure that was a lot of fun.
Real quick, Cadbury Dairy Milk. It's called Dairy Milk Chocolate.
That does sound delicious.
It's the creamiest, most delectable chocolate bar you will ever have.
Cadbury.
I mean, I'm sure they're... What?
Cadbury, we want your sponsorship.
Yes, just send us a bunch of Dairy Milks. We'll give them out as a giveaway. It'll be great. Ugh, so good. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
Another thing that I found out while I was doing a little bit of research on this that I thought was interesting, because I'd actually never heard this before. Mm-hmm. Roald Dahl apparently originally intended Charlie to be black.
Like I said, that original title.
Okay, yeah, that is a good
Charlie
change.
and the Chocolate Boy.
Well, apparently his editor at the time was a racist jerk and advised him against it, told him that he thought it was a bad idea and that readers would question why the main character was black.
He's not wrong, probably.
In the 60s?
Yeah.
I guess, maybe.
Even still, how many fucking idiots on the internet scream anytime a woman or a person of color is the main character in a fucking movie?
I mean, but those are idiots on the internet.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I don't think I would have thought anything of it as a kid.
No, I wouldn't either. I'm just saying. But we're not fucking racist idiots. So.
But it's interesting to me. This was Dahl's second children's book.
Yeah.
He had already written some adult fiction, which, by the way, if you've never read any of his adult fiction...
I didn't know he wrote adult fiction.
Oh, take a look at it. It's crazy.
I can imagine, because his children's fiction's pretty loopy and out there. I can imagine
It's very dark.
Yeah.
It's dark stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, I have to wonder, like, had he been more established in that genre and trusted his own vision more if he would have ignored his editor's advice? So,
anything else for the fun facts on the book here?
No.
Okay, because I got a bit to get through on the movie side.
I'm sure you do.
There was a lot going on with the movie. Yeah. So, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, 1971, written by Roald Dahl, who wrote the first draft of the screenplay.
Yeah.
And then David Seltzer was brought in to rework the screenplay. David Seltzer, most known for writing The Omen, which is interesting. He was brought in to rework Dahl's screenplay against Roald Dahl's wishes. He made major changes to the ending. These changes and other decisions made by the director led Dahl to disown the film. Famously, everybody knows, most people know, who know of Willy Wonka, know that Roald Dahl hated this adaptation, even though everybody else loves it. Or not necessarily loves it as a film. We'll talk about, we'll get into whether or not adaptation-wise it's very good. But, so yes. So the guy who wrote The Omen came in and rewrote, and made a bunch of changes. It had a budget of just $3 million, and received generally positive reviews, and it earned roughly $4 million by the end of its run, so it was not really a huge success, but it made its money back. It made a lot more money in syndication and
I mean, it's become a cult classic at this point.
Home video release later. In 1972, it received an Academy Award nomination for Best Original Score, and Gene Wilder was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Musical or Comedy. But both of those lost out to another musical that came out in 1972, then won a lot of awards. Got any guesses?
1972.
It's a very famous musical, but it's not one we've never watched it.
We've never watched it together.
No, I don't know if I've ever even seen it, honestly.
Okay, let me think.
But it's one of the most famous musicals.
It's too late for The Sound of Music.
Yeah, it's too late for The Sound of Music. That was the late 60s, I think. It's like up there amongst the top 10 musicals of all time, I would bet.
All right, what is it?
Fiddler on the Roof.
Oh, Fiddler. Oh, I didn't realize that came out that late.
Yeah, 72. Or 71, I guess, but yeah. Yep, lost out for Best Original Score.
Fiddler on the Roof does have a better score.
But see, now it says Best Original Score, so then Fiddler wouldn't have been Was Fiddler not... Was that a movie before it was on Broadway?
I don't know.
For it to be an original score, wouldn't it have to been?
I don't know.
Maybe
how
it's
that
still
works.
technically an original score if, like, they changed some stuff for the movie.
Yeah.
Like, maybe. I don't know. Interesting. I'll have to look into that. In 2014, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry. This is, like, the third or fourth movie. Like, Wizard of Oz is on there. I'm sure there's a couple others. That was on the list because it's culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant.
Okay.
Yep. The idea for adapting the book into a film came about when the director, Mel Stewart, the guy who directed the film, his 10-year-old daughter read the book and was like, "Hey, Daddy, make this a movie."
Oh, she was Veruca Salt.
Yeah. Yeah, I want it now. He showed the book to a producer who was talking to the Quaker Oats Company.
Oh, God.
About making a movie or a TV show or something to introduce a new candy bar from the Quaker Oats Company. So they did, and then they renamed that part of their company to Willy Wonka Candy Company and sold it to Nestle. He persuaded them, who had no like experience in the film industry, to buy the rights to the book and then finance the movie for the purpose of promoting their candy.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Quaker Oats Wonka bar.
Correct me if I'm wrong, which is why it's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
And not Charles. Probably the main...
To get the name recognition.
I would assume that's why I didn't find that particular note, but that would make sense because, yes, the Quaker Oats paid for this movie in order to sell their Wonka bar.
You know, if you asked me to name any food company that was getting into the candy business, I don't think I would have picked Quaker Oats.
Yeah. Well, they eventually sold it to Nestle, but...
Well, apparently they weren't very good at it.
Yeah. Well, they were good enough to sell it for a fair chunk of change to Nestle. All 6 members of Monty Python were considered for the role of
Willy Wonka?
Willy Wonka. And Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Eric Idle, Terry Gilliam, Terry Jones, and Michael Palin, who we've seen in a million things. They weren't considered. They all wanted to play the role. They all expressed interest in playing the role. I don't know how many. I'm sure some of them were considered too. But so this is fun. Wilder was cast. He accepted the role on one condition. And this is supposedly his edition, and now if you can correct me if not. But this is why he said I'll do the movie if we do this. When I first make my entrance, this is a quote. I'd like to come out of the door carrying a cane, and then walk toward the crowd with a limp. After the crowd sees Willy Wonka is a cripple, they all whisper themselves and become deadly quiet. As I walk toward them, my cane sinks into one of the cobblestones I'm walking on and stands straight up by itself, but I keep walking until I realize that I no longer have my cane. I start to fall forward, and just before I hit the ground, I do a beautiful forward somersault and bounce back up to great applause.
I mean, it's not in the book.
No, so this is Gene Wilder's choice, and he, according to legend, he said, "I will do it if we do this." And his reasoning is actually, I think, a very interesting reason. It works really well for the movie. So the reason he wanted to do this, and this is what he followed up with. He goes, "From that moment forward, no one will know if I'm lying or telling the truth."
Fair.
Which works for his character very well because he's a very zany truth teller slash, I mean,
he's a trickster archetype.
Trickster, yeah.
Yeah.
So you establish his character right away as, what is this guy about? And he lies to you immediately and switches up your expectations. So, yeah, I think it works. I thought that was interesting. Sammy Davis Jr. wanted to play... That's who Bill is. Bill is the candy man, the candy store guy.
Oh, okay.
We said, when we were watching the credits, it said Bill, and we're like, who's Bill? Candy store clerk. Sammy Davis Jr. wanted to play him. But Stewart didn't, the director didn't like the idea of like a big famous like person playing that role because he thought it would like take people out of the experience of the film and would like break the reality of the film. But later, Sammy Davis Jr. recorded the Candyman song and it like blew up on the charts. Like he recorded a version of it later. Ebert loved the movie, gave it like 3.5 stars. And I thought his review was really good. He said, all of this is prefaced to a simple statement. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is probably the best film of its sort since The Wizard of Oz. It is everything that family movies usually claim to be, but aren't. Delightful, funny, scary, exciting, and most of all, a genuine work of imagination. Willy Wonka is such a surely and wonderfully spun fantasy that it works on all kinds of minds. and it is fascinating because, like all classic fantasy, it is fascinated with itself. I mean, Ebert did have a way for words. That's why it's like the most famous movie critic of all time. But and as we discussed earlier, my final little fact here is that Dahl disavowed the film once it was rewritten by David Seltzer. And part of that, though, was because Roald Dahl was failing to meet deadlines. Yeah.
Writers.
In 1996, Dahl's second wife, Felicity, commented on her husband's objections, and she said, they always want to change a book's storyline. What makes Hollywood think children want the endings changed for a film when they accept it in the book? So
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm down.
That was their comments on, or his second wife's comments on the changes that they made and why he didn't like it. Mainly because they changed the end of the film.
Yeah.
Supposedly, which we'll talk about because I didn't know that. But let's get into it. It's time for Guess Who?
Okay, so I think you should get most of these. But we'll see.
Okay.
He was so enormously fat, he looked as though he had been blown up with a powerful pump. Great flabby folds of fat bulged out from every part of his body, and his face was like a monstrous ball of dough with two small, greedy, curranty eyes peering out upon the world.
Augustus Gloop.
Yeah.
It's funny because, you know, there's like the meme on the internet about how, whoa, this is a fat kid in 1971 and Augustus Gloop was like the actor playing him. I mean, while overweight is not like, you know, you can see a kid fatter than that every time you go to the grocery store. And that description of him is like, he's huge.
Yeah.
And he's really not in the movie.
He's really not fat enough.
He's overweight. Yeah, he's really not fat enough. Like I feel like even in 1971, it wouldn't have been that hard to find a kid a little bit fatter. Like a little bit fatter. Like, I mean, he's overweight, but it's not like this kid does nothing but eat. That's not what I get from watching that. Anyways, yeah. Augustus Gloop, 1 for 1.
Okay, this is a longer one.
Okay.
So bear with me.
I will bear.
He had a black top hat on his head. He wore a tailcoat made of a beautiful plum-colored velvet. His trousers were bottle green. His gloves were pearly gray. And in one hand, he carried a fine, gold-topped walking cane. Covering his chin, there was a small, neat, pointed black beard, a goatee. And his eyes were most marvelously bright. They seemed to be sparkling and twinkling at you all the time. The whole face, in fact, was alight with fun and laughter. And oh, how clever he looked! How sharp and quick and full of life! He kept making quick, jerky little movements with his head, cocking it this way and that, and taking everything in with those bright, twinkling eyes. He was like a squirrel in the quickness of his movements, like a quick, clever old squirrel from the park.
This is Willy Wonka.
It's Willy Wonka, yeah.
I mean, as soon as you say purple coat.
Yeah.
The only thing that was like a slight loop was the goatee, or the little beard, because Gene Wilder does not have a beard. But everything else was, spot on. I think there's a black hat in the book, and not a brownish.
It's like a browny purple.
No, in the movie it's like brown.
Yeah.
Like a light, almost orange, almost like an orange hat.
Is it?
It is. It's like brown bordering on like a reddish brownish orange kind of.
Oh yeah, I guess you're right.
Poof! 2 for 2. Willy Wonka. Is that it, or is there one more?
No, there's more.
2 more?
2 more.
Okay.
He looked fat and well fed. He had big lips and fat cheeks and a very fat neck. The fat around his neck bulged all out around the top of his collar like a rubber ring.
I mean, I got a couple ideas. One being Augustus Gloop's father, which seems like such a very minor character to, I mean, assuming it's not different like maybe in the book, like his father goes with him, or maybe they just, I don't know, maybe even if not, maybe just describe him. My other thought would be Veruca Salt's father, because he's a chubbier man. Veruca. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna try to play the odds here. Veruca Salt's dad.
It's the man behind the counter at the candy shop.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah.
Well,
Bill.
in the movie, Bill, but...
He doesn't have a name in the book.
He's very thin in the movie.
Yeah.
He's very spindly.
He's apparently not in the book.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he works at a candy shop.
I mean, yeah.
Okay, one more. 3 for 3. No, sorry, 2 for 3. I lost that one. I was wrong.
He smiled, showing beautiful white teeth. His skin was rosy white. His long hair was golden brown.
Ugh. Who the fuck has long hair in this movie? Nobody. Oh, what? Who the heck is this? I'm gonna go just... That doesn't even really make sense. I was like, the only things that pop into my head are Slugworth, Grandpa Joe, but he's got white hair. I feel like he's supposed to be old enough to have gray hair. Grandpa Joe.
That's an Oompa Loompa.
Oh, say that again? That's the extent of the description of an Oompa Loompa? Well,
I left out something that made it very obvious, so I will read you the entire description this time. The Oompa Loompa bowed and smiled, showing beautiful white teeth. His skin was rosy white, his long hair was golden brown, and the top of his head came to just above the height of Mr. Wonka's knee.
Okay. But they're very still. That's interesting. They're not orange-skinned.
You didn't know that?
No. Green-haired or whatever. I had no idea that...
Oh, we're going to talk about about that later.
I guess maybe I did know that because in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, they're kind of normal. Like, they don't, they're not...
Yeah, they're just like little dudes.
They're all that same little guy.
Johnny Depp version of it.
Yeah, interesting. Huh. No, I had no idea. Well, 2 for 4. Not great, but could be worse. Let's move on, though, because I got a bunch for Was That in the Book, so we're going to have to... we got to power through a bunch of them.
Okay.
Was that in the book? Was that in the book? Was that in the book? All right, first one. This is dumb, but the tinkerer, the creepy knife sharpener salesman guy who's like, it's been closed for 40 years and nobody's coming. That tells Charlie.
No, and I don't understand why he was added.
To be scary.
I guess, but there's not really like a purpose.
Yeah.
Because in the book, Charlie just like finds everything out from like his grandparents are telling him stories.
Right. They're just like telling him.
Yeah. I don't get the creepy.
I think it was to add more. What's the right word? I'm trying because I want to say it's a word like animosity, but ominous, like the version of ominous, like the adverb of ominous.
Ominosity.
Yeah, I feel like that should be it, but that's probably not a real word.
No, it's probably not.
But like they wanted to make it more ominous. They wanted to make it kind of like a mystery, like a creepy, weird. I guess is my only guess for why they changed that. So I kind of figured like that wasn't in the book. No. That seems just some random dude with a bunch of knives. And he calls him a tinkerer, but all he has is knives hanging on his cart. So this is a big one, and I might know the answer, but my second part of this is what I'm more interested in. So I'm assuming that there are no songs in the book, or like, again, when I say songs, I mean like Lord of the Rings style, like songs or anything like that.
There actually are songs.
There are songs?
There are Lord of the Rings style songs.
Oh my goodness!
The Oompa Loompas sing. It's not the same.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, the Oompa Loompas are a Greek chorus.
Right.
They comment on all of
but
the
they
drama
do a similar
and action.
thing. Like
yeah, it's a similar thing.
Huh. Okay, well, then my second half of that question then was, assuming that there weren't songs, are there, like, the moments where there are the big songs, are there reflections of those moments in just the description / dialogue in the book? Like, so what I mean by that is, like, the moment when they first walk into the candy room or whatever, and Willy Wonka sings Pure Imagination, whatever the song is called, Imagination. Are any of those lines in that song reflected in anything like Willy Wonka says?
I don't think so.
Do we want to talk about the Oompa Loompa songs now, or do we want to wait on that?
Well, I mean, the Oompa Loompa songs, And they kind of serve the same function.
Right. They're just a little different.
They're shorter and they're catchier.
Can you find one? How long are they? Can you find one and read one?
I'll find one and read a section.
Yeah, just read a little bit of it. I just want to get a feel for it.
Augustus Gloop, chanted the Oompa Loompas. Augustus Gloop, the great big greedy nincompoop. How long could we allow this beast to gorge and guzzle, feed and feast, on everything he wanted to? Great Scott, it simply wouldn't do.
Okay, similar.
So it's kind of like a rhyme, but that goes on for like another page and a half.
Right. But that is very similar. Yeah. Kind of the idea of what they do in the book, or the movie. So that's cool. Yeah, I didn't expect that, actually. Actually, I guess I kind of did. I almost wrote that down, like, there would almost have to be the Oompa Loompa songs. That feels like such a pivotal part of, especially because it was in both movies, and that's a little bit outside of what we're doing. But I've seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and they also do the songs in that for that part. So I kind of thought maybe that was, it's interesting though. Okay, cool.
I'm astonished that you've never read this.
I don't know. We read different things when we were kids, I guess.
But this is like a classic.
No, I know. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I never read it. I don't know what to tell you. And I read a lot of books when I was a kid. Like, I read a ton.
That's why I'm astonished.
Like, that was all I did was read when I was a little kid. Slugworth, who I'm almost surely going to call Slughorn at some point in this review. I know I assume he's in, he would almost have, well, you said it earlier, he's in the book. Mm-hmm. Is the same sort of, like, does he have as much of a role of, like...
No.
Like, trying to, like, get the secret... Because it's funny, because you mentioned the chocolate spies or whatever. Uh-huh. And so, is that an element of it in the book? So,
the reason that, he initially closes his factory... Right, when they
Willy
talk
Wonka.
About, when he closes it, that's why. Because of chocolate spies. Okay. And Slugworth is mentioned as a candy-making competitor. Yeah. But he's not a character in the story.
Okay, he's just mentioned.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, because here's what's funny. Speaking of now... So he doesn't have any of that plot. No. He doesn't show up and actually be working for...
No, it's not present at all.
Which makes no sense. Or makes very little sense. It's funny because I didn't realize this... I don't know if I noticed it before this time. When I was watching it a little more closely. In the candy shop in the beginning, the Bill... our favorite, the Candyman, offers to... He says, do you want to buy a Slughorn Sizzler? Or a slug... I did it, and I didn't mean to. A Slugworth Sizzler. He says that to Charlie at one point. He's like, you want a Slugworth Sizzler or a Wonka, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait a second. Because at this point I knew, obviously having seen the movie a dozen times or whatever, that Slugworth ends up being... He says he works... Willy Wonka says he works for him. Oh, okay. Maybe that's what it is. That guy's not actually Slugworth. No. That makes sense. Because in my head, I thought that guy was actually Slugworth. And I was like, wait a second. So Slugworth Willy Wonka set up a whole nother shell company that has its own line of chocolate that Slugworth has his name on, just so that he can have this elaborate plan to try to find a kid who's worthy, who doesn't give up his secrets to the... Oh, that makes much more sense if that's just not actually Slugworth. He even says that he's got a different name. He calls him Mr. Something. Yeah. Oh, I'm dumb.
You're cute. You're adorable.
Also, a Sizzler is a terrible name for a chocolate bar.
Well, Slugworth is a terrible name for a...
Oh, you want a Slugworth Sizzler? No, I don't want that.
Thank you.
I don't know what that is, but it sounds terrible. Okay. Next one. Uncle Joe. Or Grandpa Joe. Let's talk about... I don't know why I wrote Uncle Joe. Grandpa Joe, let's talk about it. Is he bedridden and then magically able to walk?
Yes.
What a fucking shitter.
Everybody hates Grandpa Joe.
I know.
That's like a thing.
It's a meme. I know. It's weird. Well, it's not weird. I get it because he's like, I can't walk. Oh, wait. We're going to a sweet chocolate factory? I can walk. I can walk now. I'm good now. I can walk. So it's the same thing. Like he's in bed and then now he's fine. He can
I mean, I guess they never say in the book that like they can't get up.
Because they explicitly say in the movie that they're bedridden for the last 20 years. And because he says something about wishing he could help.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like get a job or whatever. Wishing he could help them, like, around the house or make money or something. Like, explicitly saying that he can't get out of bed. But then he just can. Because chocolate. Oh, they have a lot of other problems with Grandpa Joe that we'll get to when we discuss later on. Coming up here in momentarily. Okay. This is a random thing, and it seems like a thing Roald Dahl would do. So, are all of the parents/adults in this movie, their names, like the male and female version of the same name?
The grandparents are. It's Joe and Josephina and George and Georgina.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because they mention, is it Mike's? No.
One of the, is it?
Veruca's.
Yeah. Which, though, that's not mentioned in the book.
Okay, because Veruca's parents are Henry and Henrietta.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, are all of the parents, like, the male and female name of, which would be, you know, a thing I could see.
Yeah, that's a super Roald Dahl
That's a super, like, quirky, like, silly thing to do. So at least, that's probably what it is. The grandparents were that, and they just kind of expanded it to the other characters in the movie. Cool. My last one for Was That in the Book? Because I have a problem with this scene, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it kind of ruins a lot of the movie when I'm thinking on it. And I mean, ruin it, but like, the fizzy lifting drinks.
The fizzy lifting drinks are not in the book. I have a huge problem with it too.
Okay.
I kind of want to get to it in...
We can wait.
A different... better in the book.
Okay, we can do that. We can wait for better in the book. So that scene is not in the movie, or not in the book.
It's not in the book.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about that in conjunction with the Slugworth side
Well,
plot.
then we'll wait on it. We'll put a pin in that. But the fizzy lifting drinks isn't in the book because I have a problem with it that I want to discuss later.
They mention fizzy lifting drinks.
Yeah.
Like it's something that's mentioned randomly, but they don't ever like...
Go to a room.
Yeah, they don't go to a room, they don't try them, they don't do anything with them.
Let's move on. This could be an interesting one. I only have one for it, but I think we're going to get into the weeds with the Oompa Loompas. It's time for Lost in Adaptation. Oompa Loompa style. Loompaland. Is that a place that is expanded upon in the book that we learn any more about?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get into the Oompa Loompas.
Let's get into it because
this sounded like you were excited to talk Oompas.
This is a point of contention that I have with the book.
With the book?
Okay. So Oompa Loompas in the movie are orange and green little men.
Little people.
Right? Little people.
And they're all men, at least they seem to be, yeah.
It would appear.
It would appear, from our experience.
Okay, so the first published edition of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I think I said 1962 earlier. I was incorrect. It was 1964.
Okay, so close, though.
Pretty close. They're literally, like, pygmies from Africa.
No.
I know.
Yeah.
It's not good. So obviously there were some complaints about that.
Yeah.
Second published edition, Dahl revised, and as I read in my description, he instead describes them as small people with white skin and golden brown hair. He makes up a country, Loompa Land, makes up, all the monsters that are there in Loompa Land. But it was kind of lazily done.
Yeah.
Like there's still a really obvious metaphor for native people.
Native people.
Yeah. Just more generically.
Yeah. They're just not specific native people. They're just a caricature of generic native people.
Basically, he went back and, I'll just make them white then. And that makes everything better, right?
It's fine now, right?
Yeah, it's fine now. It's totally
cool. They're not black, so we got it, right? We're good? Cool.
But they still, they wear deer skin.
Oh, yeah.
And, he ships them to the factory in boxes. It's really not good. So I'm like, it's one of the things that really dates the book.
Yeah.
Like really, really dates it.
Yeah.
the changes were lazily done.
Yeah.
He did make the changes, which is more than you can say for a lot of authors.
Yeah, they would just be like, fuck you. It is what it is.
I do think making that change for the movie was a good decision.
Yeah.
I think that's an improvement.
Yeah, it kind of helps separate it. They're a little less, when it's a fantasy land and it's not so obviously, like, they're in, like, suits and...
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still see that where they're... You can still see it there, but you have to kind of really look. It's not as obvious. Like, you can still... It still feels a little like...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wrong.
It's weird.
It's still a little off, but it's better. A little. Roald Dahl, racist, confirmed. Get him, Twitter. He's dead. Yeah, a lot of old fiction tends to be problematic.
I mean, you have to... I mean, you gotta really think about it when you read something that was written a fair amount of time ago. You're not just reading a story, you're also reading a historical document.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, that's fair. And you just gotta kind of take it with what it is. It's, people who founded, spoilers, people who founded our country owned slaves. So, like, things used to be different. Not great. Yeah.
Still not particularly great.
No.
But different.
So, yeah, that's interesting. That's, that's kind of, actually, it's funny because I had never read it, but I was kind of figured that might be where that was going.
And now then, to me, too, what's interesting, if we think back to his editor, who didn't want him to make Charlie a black boy, of course his editor didn't call him out on the racist African pygmy people.
Caricature of...
Yeah.
No.
Of course he didn't.
Nah.
What a jerk.
No. It's all the editor's fault, that's what we're saying. It's always the editor's fault.
That motherfucker.
It's always the editor's fault. That was all I had for Lost in Adaptation. I just wanted some extra background, and I think that was a good discussion about Oompa Loompas. Were they called Oompa Loompas in the original?
I think so.
Like when they were pygmy people from...
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. So it looks like they were called Oompa Loompas.
Okay.
From what I can see, it looks like maybe that was like the name of the tribe.
Ah. Okay.
It gets just better and better.
Yeah.
It gets better and better all the time. Oh boy.
All right. Oompa Loompas. Hashtag problematic. Moving on. Do we do better in the book first or better in the movie first?
Better in the book.
All right. Time for Better in the Book. What is better in the book?
Okay. A lot of things.
Okay.
Spoiler alert, I'm not the hugest fan of this adaptation.
Really?
I don't particularly like the movie.
Really?
I never really have.
I really like the movie. I just really like Gene Wilder, so.
Could be because this was one of my favorite books growing up.
Yeah, that's fair. That would make sense.
And the movie does a lot of things.
The movie does a lot of things.
Takes a lot of, like, liberties and things.
Right.
Okay. I'm just gonna list some stuff.
Go for it.
The movie kills off Charlie's dad.
Oh, his dad's in the book?
His dad's in the book. He works at a toothpaste factory, screwing the caps onto toothpaste bottles, which is a very Roald Dahl thing to have someone do. Yeah. And then the toothpaste factory closes. There are a lot of factories in this town.
Yeah.
Never thought about it.
That's one of those towns. Yeah, it's one of those. It's the industrial boom of like 1930s or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know what year or decade it's supposed to be, but
Roald Dahl's stories are dark, but they're not grim. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And to me, the movie is a little grim.
In what way?
I don't know. I just think it misses the... It doesn't have the same tone
that
the book has. It's not it's not the same.
Okay. You don't want to expand on that at all?
I'm gonna try.
Okay.
Alright. So dark things happen in Roald Dahl books, but it doesn't feel real.
Okay.
The movie is a little more grounded in realism.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie's dad is dead, and Charlie has a paper route, which would make sense for a family that's poor, but that's not in the book.
Right.
Because it's a little more grounded in fantasy.
I think I know what you're saying. I think what you're saying is that the hardships that befall the characters in the book are heightened to where they border on absurdity. Maybe. Not necessarily, but to the point, similar to something like Lemony Snicket.
Yes.
Where it's hardship, but it's turned up to 11 to where you almost laugh at it. Like his dad working at a factory, like being so downtrodden that your job is screwing the caps on toothpaste tubes. Like that is, like, if you wanted to ground that in reality, his job would just be a shitty factory job. But when you take that extra step and make it this, like, overly mundane, overly specific, terrible factory job, it adds that twist of surrealism to it.
Yes.
That lightens it in a way. That sort of takes it out of the realm of reality, for lack of a better word. And so I think I see what you're saying in that regard. The things that suck in a way that's fun. Yeah. Maybe.
It's, I mean, and not that they're fun, but they're not grim and gritty and real.
Right. Right. Like I said, I think I know exactly what you're saying. It's Lemony Snicket versus Oliver.
Yeah.
Maybe is a way to, like, say it. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like orphan child, but like fun orphan child. I don't know. All right. But I do think I know what you're saying. I think I get tonally what you're talking about.
Like I think part of too what bothers me about the movie is that they tried to, like, substitute for that by, like, making it brightly colored and having a lot of puns.
Right.
And that's not really the thing.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
So there's a message in this book that I think is there in the movie, but not to the extent that it is in the book. Okay. There's a message about people using their resources to gain an unfair advantage.
Right.
Which is present in the movie.
It's definitely present.
But it's a little more...
I mean, it's pretty exclusively limited to Veruca Salt's character in the movie. Like, it's just her dad has a bunch of money and the factory to have people unwrap candy bars. Right. So that's how she gets her ticket. But that's really the only character where that really manifests, because the rest of them just seem to find... I mean, they all have well-to-do parents, but they aren't, like...
Yeah, they're all doing all right. Whereas the Bucket family, there's literally a chapter called "The Family Begins to Starve." Like, they have nothing.
I thought you said it wasn't grim, Katie. It's not helping your "it's not grim" argument.
But, like, okay, I thought of the distinction that bothers me. For a lot of the movie, they kind of, like, I think there's more, like, encouragement of, like, this idea that Charlie has just as much of a chance as anybody to find the golden ticket.
Especially because he wants it more. Fuck you, Grandpa Joe. Yeah, because
he wants it more or something. No, that's not how it works. People who have a lot of money have more of a chance of finding the golden tickets. Yeah. This is a flaw in Willy Wonka's plan.
Yeah.
But there's actually, like, they don't encourage that idea in the book. I want to read a little section if I can find it. "Nonsense," cried Grandpa Joe. "Wouldn't it be something, Charlie, to open a bar of candy and see a golden ticket glistening inside?" "It certainly would, Grandpa, but there isn't a hope," Charlie said sadly. "I only get 1 bar a year." "You never know, darling," said Grandma Georgina. "It's your birthday next week. You have as much a chance as anybody else." "I'm afraid that simply isn't true," said Grandpa George. "The kids who are going to find the golden tickets are the ones who can afford to buy candy bars every day. Our Charlie only gets 1 a year.
Yeah.
There isn't a hope."
So, yeah, that's definitely... They cut George's lines out. You know, I can see why they did it, because they want it to be... I feel like in their head, when they cut that and they changed it to, oh yeah, Charlie's got just... Because they literally leave the first half of that in.
Yeah.
Charlie's got just as much a chance as anybody. And then they add on more with Joe saying he's got even more chance because he wants it more. I think what they were going for was like trying to be like, it's like an inspirational message of like, if you really want it, you can go out and you can achieve your dreams. You can go out, you know what I mean? I feel like that's what they were going for, because they thought it would just be depressing to be like, yeah, like rich people, they got it better.
Yeah.
They're gonna get stuff because they got money to get stuff, and you're poor, so deal with it. That you're not, you know what I mean? So like, I guess I get what they were going for with that change of trying to make it seem empowering, but it is definitely against the message. Like it definitely goes against the sort of realist outlook of, and sort of the commentary on class disparity.
Yeah.
That the book has.
Yes.
No, it still touches on that, because it is all the rest of the people that find the tickets are all middle to upper middle class, if not straight up just wealthy.
Yeah.
So that's still there to an extent, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think they were trying to make it a little more inspirational. I prefer this sort of discourse about it, and about the ways that people do use their resources to gain an unfair advantage in something that's supposed to be, a contest that's open to anyone.
Yeah, open, random.
Because, too, that also ties in with the messages about, your behavior and being spoiled in the way that you act, and which then brings me to... Slugworth side plot / fizzy lifting drinks. First, Slugworth side plot.
Yes.
It makes sense, but the story doesn't need it.
Okay.
Nasty kids get eliminated by the factory itself and by their own behavior. Like, that's the whole kind of point.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason for the whole Slugworth, who's gonna take the everlasting gobstopper, blah blah blah. There's really no point to it.
Yeah.
Fizzy lifting drinks.
Which is not in the book.
Not in the book. Again, a whole other point to the story is that he's the only kid who doesn't just go into the factory and do whatever the hell he wants.
Right.
Like, he's the only one.
Yes.
So this story is basically a morality play.
Yeah, 100%.
And the movie unnecessarily complicates that.
Okay.
Like, for no reason, complicates it.
That was my point with the fizzy lifting drinks, because what I wrote after that and what we put a pin in, I was like, this scene kind of ruins the whole point of Charlie's character.
Yeah.
Is that he's the character who's mild-mannered, well-behaved, and doesn't just do what he wants.
Yeah. He's the only one who's not a complete brat.
Yeah. And so having a scene where Willy Wonka says, don't do this...
And then he does the thing. That makes him the same as the other kids.
He literally... It's the exact same thing that all the other kids do, but his has no repercussions.
Yeah. For some reason.
Other than... See, and then they had to add the slug. It's a weird thing where because they have that, they have to add the Slugworth storyline to give him
to redeem him
that redemptive arc
at the end,
and to have that moment where Willy Wonka says, "No, you lose. Good day," because he still violated the rules or whatever. But he goes back and gives him the everlasting gobstopper in spite of that. So I think there's an interesting moment there where even though. Like, Willy Wonka yells at him, is like, get the fuck out. Even in spite of that, Charlie still won't, sell him out, won't give up the gobstopper to Slugworth. But, yeah, it feels like, okay, so it just seems completely out of character, and it kind of just ruins the whole point of what, like it said, it's like every other character, when they do something wrong, when they misbehave in the moment in the factory, there are repercussions for it. And then Charlie does it, and it's fine. Like, it's not fine. Like, he gets yelled at, but then it's fine still. So, like, would he have given it to the other kids if they had also, after they got fucking pulled out of the incinerator or whatever, if they still walked up to him and go, here's your gobstopper back?
That's the question. Like... I don't know.
I mean, they probably wouldn't have, to be fair, but... It's a weird change.
It's an unnecessary complication. Both of them are. There's no reason for it. Because we arrive at more or less the same conclusion. Charlie gets the chocolate factory.
Yeah.
So why?
Why? My only guess is just they wanted an extra, like, interesting scene. But it doesn't even... Yeah, it's really weird. Like, it's really weird that they added that. Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, because I feel like you could have done that scene. I guess they... I don't know. I don't know why they added it. Because it's like, it doesn't add anything. All it does is detract from Charlie and Grandpa's character. It doesn't add anything to them. It just makes them on the same plane. Not the same, but like, puts them on the same level as everybody else as having broken a rule. Yeah. And then the only reason you do that is so that when Charlie gives the gobstopper back, that's his final moment of the. But if you cut that out completely, then he gets it because. I guess maybe what they did is they wrote that really great scene for Gene Wilder where he says, "I said good day, sir," and they like needed that moment.
God, yeah.
Because it's great. It's great. It's really well delivered, and Gene Wilder crushes it, and they really liked that. So they're like, we need a reason for him to yell at him, so they break the rules. Like, it makes no sense. It really does. It's a weird change.
It makes no sense, and I hate it.
It's fair. I mean, I wrote the same thing. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, it just kind of
and it misses the point too of kind of what Roald Dahl's children's stories are, because they are all in their own way kind of morality plays. Yeah. And they're very simple. Like, they're kooky and they're dark, but they're simple. Good people are good, bad people are bad. It's not really about character arcs. Right. In his books. So, like, that's not what it's about. It's about the stories.
And it's not even the thing is that it's not, if it was a character arc, that would be one thing, but it's not. It's just an out-of-character moment for Charlie. Mm-hmm. Because he's goaded on by his asshole grandpa.
Yeah. And then he goes right back to being...
the well-behaved
good person.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just an out-of-character moment. All right, we gotta move along here. Any more for better in the book?
There are two other things I want to mention real quick. Squirrels are better than geese.
Oh, that's right, it is squirrels.
Squirrels are like a million times better than geese, yes. I hate geese.
Is it nuts?
Yeah. Yeah. And all the squirrels grab her and they knock on her and listen to see if she's a bad nut, and then they throw her down the garbage chute.
That's one of the fun scenes in the Johnny Depp one. That is actually a pretty fun when it is squirrels.
Which I can understand how it would have been difficult for them to accomplish that in 1971. But squirrels are still better than geese.
That's why they did it, I bet, because it's very easy the way they did it. That makes sense. It works. It's without having squirrels coming up and knocking on you. Yeah.
Another thing, the movie completely leaves out like the best part at the end of the book, which is that we get to see all of the other kids leave the factory.
That would've been fun.
And they're all like changed and bedraggled and
like beaten down.
Yeah. And, like, Mike TV has been, like, stretched out to be, like, 10 feet tall. And it's a really good scene.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
And the Quentin Blake, illustrations of that scene is really good. I'll see if I can find it and put it on the Facebook page. Yeah. So I was disappointed that they left that out.
That would have been a fun scene. Yeah. I would have liked that. Because it would also given some resolution, because we don't know.
Like, we don't know what happened.
Maybe some
maybe they got incinerated and turned into fudge. And...
I mean, it's implied, definitely implied that they didn't, but still, it's yeah.
Yes.
Better in the movie. Let's do it.
Okay, better in the movie. I just have a couple things.
Okay. You should just have one, Gene Wilder. It's not even better in the movie, it's just...
I'll talk about that in a second. Okay, well, we talked about changing the Oompa Loompas.
Yes.
Was a good idea.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
The movie gets pretty real about, like, how crazy everybody would go about this. About the golden tickets.
Golden tickets, yeah.
Which is an element that's not really present in the book because it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting that they, like, showed everybody freaking out.
Yeah,
and,
like, losing their minds.
Yeah, and, like, people auctioning off bars of candy.
Yeah,
and
I think my favorite moment of that is the reporter, or the anchor, the news anchor, and he's like, I don't know, God, what does he say? He says something along the lines of, like, somewhere out there, another lucky person is moving closer and closer to finding the last of the most sought-after prizes in history. Though we cannot help but envy him, whoever he is, and we might be tempted to be bitter in our losing, we must remember there are many more important things. Many more important things. Offhand, I can't think of what they are, but I'm sure there must be something. That moment, I actually loved all of the moments with that anchor. Yeah. It was really enjoyable. And I also loved looking at those news sets where it's just like a desk in the middle of a giant blue room with like two guys in desks behind him. I don't know if it was like the studio or... A lot of this movie looks really cheap to me. Really? Yeah, like... Well, they made it for $3 million's not nothing in 1971, but it's not... Like, a lot of the sets to me look pretty spare, and I don't know, maybe that was just, like, the time period, yeah, that's part of that. And it wasn't a ton of money. Their budget wasn't huge. I mean, it wasn't... I mean, $3 million's not nothing back then, but it's also not a huge budget. Cheap and so 70s. God, it's also 70s. Really? See, I didn't... Oh, look at their hair, look at their clothes. Yeah, I guess. Listen to the music. Yeah. It's also 70s. It didn't stick out that much to me. So, how crazy everybody goes, that was a thing that I liked. The person who fakes having a ticket isn't in the book. I thought that was, it was an interesting addition. So, does Charlie just get his ticket while there's still one... Yeah. He finds money. Yeah. That goes down the same way, and he goes and buys a candy bar. And then he buys one more, and that one has. So that scene is pretty similar, but he just there's not the extra moment of because I think that's interesting that he buys those candy bars, not thinking that he's going to win a ticket. Yeah, which is interesting. It's an interesting change, but okay. He just buys them because he really wants to smash that chocolate. Gene Wilder plays Willy Wonka really different from in the book. Like, it's a really different interpretation. Yeah. You can tell right away that he's got something up his sleeve. Yeah. And what book Willy Wonka is definitely a trickster, but it's less obvious. Yeah. He's really, like, kind of childlike. He speaks in exclamation marks all the time. He's more like the Johnny Depp one, probably. I don't think I've only seen parts of it. My guess is, from what I remember of Johnny Depp's performance, that sounds more like how Johnny Depp plays him. Like, he comes off as, like, really passionate about everything, whereas Wilder's Wonka seems almost kind of sad to me. Like, he seems like the depressed artist archetype. I didn't get that. He seems in that room where he's going around in the whatever he calls it, the experiment, not the experiment room, but the room where he's like fucking creating stuff. Yeah. He seems very into it there, like, to me. Like, well, it's not that he's not into it, but like his portrayal to me comes off as kind of melancholy. Yeah, he definitely has that, a little bit of that. I can see I see what you're saying. I think that's a choice he made because he's very clearly, once the elevator goes to the ceiling, he's very, well, actually, from the moment that Charlie puts the everlasting gobstopper on his desk, his facade completely drops.
Yeah.
And he's nothing but genuine for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And so I think, and like we said earlier, when he said, like, you know, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do a cartwheel, or I'm going to do a somersault, and then from that point on, you'll never know if I'm telling the truth or lying. I think his whole portrayal is supposed to be that, because he's weeding out, he's fucking with them in order to find. I don't know. I like it. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, it's different. I wouldn't necessarily say it's better or worse.
Okay, that's fair.
See, like in the book, it comes off a lot less like he's actively trying to weed them out.
Right.
That happens like more because of the kid's behavior.
Right. Well, and it does in this too.
Yeah.
He never actively does anything.
Right.
But he has the, oh no, don't stop, like that sort of thing.
And there's less of that element in the book.
Yeah.
Although I suppose you can interpret dialogue however you'd like.
Like he could be like, no, don't stop. And then Gene Wilder's like, no, don't stop. Please, no. Yeah. Interesting. I love Gene Wilder in this movie. He's just amazing. Yeah. I mean, he's good in everything, but I think he's brilliant in this movie. All right. Anything else for better in the movie?
No.
All right. Let's do it. The final verdict. Katie.
I think you know how this is going to go.
This is going down.
I'm going to give it to the book.
All right. The book is better. According to Katie. It's... Because it makes sense in a film that made as many changes as it did. What else is very different about the ending? I wanted to get into that real quick. Because Roald Dahl, one of the main reasons, he didn't like some of the songs they added, but he also disavowed it because of the major changes they made to the ending.
I'm going to assume...
Is that the Slugworth
that's probably the Slugworth Gobstopper thing.
Does the rest of it end in the same way where
More
he
or
goes
less,
through the elevator?
They go up in the elevator, they pop out of the roof, he gives him the chocolate factory. I mean, the only other big thing that's changed, like I said, we don't get to see the kids leave.
Right, but that's like my...
And then the book ends with them, like, crashing into Charlie's house to get his family. Right. But that's...
Sure, yeah, that's a minor...
Yeah, that's not a huge change. So I would have to guess that he was upset about this.
And the way that changes the ending.
Are major changes.
That is a pretty major change, and it's a really weird change, like we discussed earlier. So I can see that. That's a very strange change.
I mean, I think, as a writer, I would be upset by something like that. Because, that messes with the integrity of the story. Yeah. No, it does. It definitely does. Like I said, I wrote it down where I was like, this almost ruined... And it doesn't ruin, but it's like, kind of, to an extent, ruins, like, Charlie's character. Yeah. Like, that's the whole point, is that he's... Not an asshole.
He's good. He's the good one. And then when he breaks the rules, it's like, but... like, that's the whole point. So he doesn't break the rules, and everybody else does. So, mark another one up. For the book, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory gets the nod over Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Gene Wilder did his best, and he'll always get my vote. But Katie's going with the book. Guys, thank you for listening to the 11th episode of This Film is Lit. What's our next episode going to be? Our prequel episode will be next. Well, we'll talk about some stuff and preview our next book/film, which is... Our next book/movie that we are doing... This is exciting. Is Fight Club. Oh! This is exciting! Shit! You've never seen Fight Club either,
no, I've never read the book.
Oh, this is going to be super interesting.
I know little tidbits about it here and there.
I'm excited. But this is going to be fun.
Not that much.
This will be fun. This is a weird... It's an interesting movie. It's got interesting message. Chuck Palahniuk, or whatever the fuck you say his name, is an interesting author. And there's a lot of discussion about the sort of themes and meaning of this book/movie.
Well, I know it's a really, famous, popular...
It's a very famous movie. It's, in the top 100 movies of all time. But it's also very hotly debated because a lot of, like shitty edgelords like it because they interpret it surface level, and then a lot of other people like it because they go a little bit deeper. But then there's also kind of like in the critical analysis of it, it's a little bit muddy on what the actual message. I could be wrong. I watched a really interesting analysis of the movie years ago. I think Folding Ideas did it. But so I'm really excited for this one. This is gonna be interesting.
I'm sure we'll get into some analysis.
This is gonna be a fun discussion because there's lots of let's say culturally and socially significant and relevant messages that. Is that a mount?
What is that?
Is that our water heater? In this moment, we realized our upstairs neighbors' pipes were leaking into our apartment.
We love our upstairs neighbors.
I don't even think it's their fault, probably. It's just their pipe. So, minor emergency. We're going to go take care of this. Do us a favor. Go rate us on our iTunes, Stitcher, whatever you listen to us on. Go write us a review. Give us a 5-star rating. That'd be great. Helps us out a lot. Check out the Facebook page, facebook.com/thisfilmislit. Twitter @thisfilmislit. And that's pretty much it. We got to go deal with stuff, life. So, thanks. Bye.